Hello, this is Kinninigan from RagingReptilian.com. Today we are going to crack a little mystery out of ancient Greece of all places, and a little theory I have that will basically tie this into reptilians, specifically the Igigi gods, the Anunnaki, as well, that I teach about because there's some interesting things with this. These are structures called by the Greek word Drakospita, or dragon houses. They are on a island in the Aegean Sea, on a mountain called Mount Oshi. There's around 25, well, yeah, 25. They say 23 in the article, but I have the source to this article pulled up too, because what's interesting is, if you know anything about Greek mythology, the word dragon or Draco is not used very often, and when it is, they often refer to serpents by their name, or snake. This is quote unquote baffling the experts and scientists. Like I said, a lot of times not too many people have heard of these ruins because it's not something they obviously like to talk about too much, because there's some bizarre things with these. First of all, every one of these houses is built with a hole in the ceiling. And they're built out of heavy stone slabs. So we're going to read about these, and I'll show you some pics. So what baffles the scientists is they don't know why, first of all, the Greeks are referring to them as Drakospita, or dragon houses, since that usually refers back to the Alpha Draconian star system, or Thuban, the snake. So that's puzzling. And the second clue also is the gods. They refer to these as shrines to Hera, Zeus, or Heracles. So I'm going to come back to this article, but I'll show you some pictures here. This is a source that they got some of the pictures from. It's not in English, but you could take a look at some of these surviving houses. They're built at very high altitude on Mount Oshi. They all had these holes in the ceiling. So the first thing I'm going to say is this obviously looks like they were built, the roofs were reinforced with heavy stone slab. Obviously they were built to hold a lot of weight. That looks like an opening where I guess a ladder or something would be put through, and someone could board or unboard a flying craft. Now what's amazing, if it was, let's see, even mythical dragons, we would have heard more about dragons in Roman mythology. Unfortunately, we don't. The only Greek god that is half serpent that comes right off the top of my head is Typhon. And then the other dragon that comes to mind in mythology is Sula, and that's from the Iliad. This is what a depiction of a dragon in ancient Greece looks like, but I did find something very interesting. I see dragons in Greek mythology. It roots back to the word drake, or Draco, and Typhon. So the fact that they called these 25 houses, quote unquote, dragon houses, is what is baffling the scientists. This is what I wanted to show you. I did some digging around. I've been looking for some. This is a mosaic that comes from ancient Greece, and there's something very telling in this mosaic. This is a representation of the gods from Olympus. You'll notice the wings on the head here, and look at this very bizarre looking beaked serpent near the gods. And so it gets more bizarre with the reptilian symbolism in Greek mythology here. This I've shown before in many videos, the Grand Assembly of the Anunnaki. Like I said, these dragon houses were thought to be shrines to... I pulled this up. This is a nice visual representation of the Greek pantheon, and it suits pretty well. These dragon houses were thought to be shrines to Hera, Zeus, would have been Demeter, Poseidon, and Hestia. Above them are the Titans, which And would be these gods here in the Sumerian pantheon. I did a lecture on Tartarus already, because Tartarus is mentioned here, and then beginning with Chaos, which is at the top of their pantheon, which also becomes Apsu or Tiamat, Mother Hubbard, the Dragon Queen. Roots of the Dragon. This is why I'm showing you this. I believe that these quote-unquote dragon houses are possibly a lot like, it's theorized that it's definitely a different video topic, but in Mesopotamia, for example, we have ziggurats with flat tops that look like they could have been disembodied from flying craft. That was theorized already. And even in like the Mayan and Aztec temples, some of them also have flat tops, and they were all built dedicated to quote-unquote the gods. So let's read about these dragon houses here in the article. I'll leave all these links in the description too. I know it's pretty bizarre, but when I read through this, you'll understand why they're puzzled by these. And they're not like houses that people would have lived in either. I think that's just Situ, which is house in Greece, probably means more. It's a dwelling, but not a house that I think people were actually living in. Like I said, these look like places where the gods probably could have boarded and unboarded some type of flying craft or flying animal. The other animal that flies in Greek mythology that comes to mind more than dragons would actually be the griffin, of all things. The creature with the head of an eagle and body of a lion. That would have been more well known in Greece as like a race of flying entities. When dragons are mentioned in Greek mythology, they're kind of sparse, and like I said, I pulled this up. Typhon, he comes to mind. He's one of the gods, Latin. Then we get the Hydra. He's probably all heard the stories of Hydra. Helios's dragons, winged dragons, that he gave to his granddaughter Medea. Now Medea rides a chariot pulled by serpents. Very interesting symbolism right there. But like I said, it wouldn't make. Why would they build 25 of these dragon houses? That's what's baffling. The experts, I'm thinking, is there 20, because there are a lot of gods in the Greek pantheon. So, were these used for something they can't tell you? The mystery of the ancient Greek dragon houses. Mount Olympus, the Peloponnesian War, Pericles, Athens, and of course the Parthenon. When one considers ancient Greece, there are only a few topics that usually spring to mind. The heroic age of gods and men, the historical wars between Greek city-states, powerful strategically, and their prominent cities, and, of course, architectural feats beyond compare. What does not spring to mind, however, are the megalithic structures the Greeks call Drakospita, or dragon houses. Megalithic architecture of the Drakospita. Likely dating to the pre-classical period of ancient Greece, the dragon houses of Euboea are among the mysteries of the past that have yet to be understood. Resembling the stepped pyramid of Djoser in pre-dynastic Egypt and the temple complexes of pre-Columbian Teotihuacan, these megalithic houses are structures built without mortar. Small, thin, mostly flat stones make up the buildings, stacked atop one another, kept in place with uses of jabs and lintels. Large megaliths are used in various places throughout the structures, usually toward the roofs, positioned in a fashion that is similar to what is seen at Stonehenge. While little is understood of these dragon houses, the number of the structures is far more expected. Around 23 of these houses exist on the island of Euboea, mostly between Mounts Oshé and Styra, each building made of megaliths. In fact, scholars are constantly boggled by sheer size and weight of the single megalith resting on two equally large post stones, together forming a doorway. How this megalith could have been lifted and placed atop the posts is as much a mystery as the reason behind the building of these structures. And of course, even with these sites that I was just talking about in Egypt and Teotihuacan, These could not have been lifted by normal humans without using cranes today. So they can't explain, were they built by giants, were they built with other types of technology. There's a few theories on how these structures could have been built, but not by normal humans just doing it. That's these slabs right here that they're talking about above the roof. It should further be noted that not only is the reason behind the houses a consistent question among scholars, but their location is equally astonishing. These dragon houses are situated at very high altitudes, making the weight and size of the megaliths even more shocking. The builders had to find a way to transport such large megaliths from a much lower altitude, and then construct the houses at a height at which was likely unpleasant to work. Further, each structure possesses a pantheon-like opening in the roof, likely intended for natural sun or moonlight to illuminate the interior of the structures. Now, I had my own theory on the holes in the ceiling, and I'm not buying to let moonlight or sunlight in. Why would you put that much work into making a megalith like this just to put a hole in the ceiling? I understand it probably could have been covered with a wooden door or something that didn't survive. Only the stonework survived. But still, it's not making any sense. And why did they build them on mountains? Like I said. What's in a name? Some theories have arisen that the structures may have been shrines to Hera, Zeus, or Hercules. That is actually supposed to be Hercules. Theories regarding the rituals that might have taken place within, however, are few. Another popular belief is that these megalithic buildings were either stations at which guards were positioned during the Hellenistic period, or they were warehouses in which supplies may have been stored. If these locations had been stations, they would have served as a base equipped with food supplies and soldiers, prepped and ready for whatever battle might be on the horizon. As warehouses, the list of necessities would have likely been non-perishable food items, yet the premise would have remained the same: in case of emergency, break megalith. I'm not really buying that military storage warehouse story either. Yeah, like I said, they try to cover up a lot of these megaliths with stories. But here's the big teller right here. They mention it. Another question lies in the structures' names. Why are these buildings called Drakospita? The first thing one must understand is that ancient Greek conceptions of dragons is not the same as current one. Draco, interpreted as dragon in the present, really describes a mythical creature akin to modern perceptions of giants. In light of this description, one can easily understand why these mountain houses would have been named Drakospita by archaeologists. And that's all I'm going to read for the article. The bottom part where, that's why I did, in the beginning, I was talking for a little bit and explaining to you what I think these might actually be. It's also near the prominent city of Charistos, if you know anything about Greek mythology. There's a video attached to this article, but it's kind of just going over some of the questions raised by, they're not really talking in the video, there's just music playing, but this link will be in the description. I told you what my theory is. And again, I want this picture too. Very interesting. So, yes, the gods, I believe that they're talking about, I believe that these were probably built in the same way that ancient Mesopotamia would have had these exact kind of temples built where they probably could have landed. And we see the same, that would be these gods right here, the Igigi. So, what do you think these quote-unquote Drakospita or Greek dragon houses were used for? I'll leave all these links in the description. If there's any questions or comments, leave them below. And until we speak again, this is Kinninigan, and take care.